Hello and welcome to the New England Jewish Labor Committee's Labor Seder for 2021 5781. We are so grateful for all of you who are here with us tonight. My name is Ari Fertig. I am the director of the New England Jewish Labor Committee. This program is going to be translated into Spanish. We have Spanish language interpreter here. If you click interpretation, the globe symbol, you can select Spanish as your language. Erica, would you like to take a moment to explain that?
Bueno, bienvenidos a todos para celebrar el Seder del Comité Laboral de Judíos de Nueva Inglaterra. Estamos muy agradecidos a todos por estar aquí esta noche. Mi nombre es Ari Fair y yo soy el director del Comité Laboral de Judíos de Nueva Inglaterra. Vamos a hacer este evento en bilingüe, en español, para las personas que están usando su computadora. Ahorita no va a aparecer, pero al ratito va a aparecer un globito allá abajo y pueden presionar el globo y escoger español para escucharme a mí, la voz del intérprete. Si usted está llamando desde su celular, allá la parte de abajo, en la esquina, la parte de participantes, va a aparecer 3 puntitos y más presione esos 3 puntitos. Luego va a aparecer una lista y dentro de la lista aparece interpretación de idioma. Presione interpretación de idioma, escoja español y luego finalizado. Gracias. Hello, my name is Erika Perez and this event will be bilingual. So once the host will enable language interpretation, you will see a globe at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining from your computer, choose English. And that's it. But if you're calling from your cell phone using the Zoom app, there will be 3 dots next to participants. Tap there, click language interpretation, tap English, and done. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And Rosie is providing live captioning tonight. If you click the CC button on the bottom right and click the button that says, click that, you can choose show subtitles or view the full live transcription of our Seder. Thank you, Erica and Rosie, for that. We are recording this Zoom, so if you do not wish to be in the recording, please take your video off now. Tonight, our program will last about an hour with time for breakout rooms to schmooze afterwards. So I just want to start by saying that Labor Seders are supposed to be events that bring the labor movement and the Jewish community together in solidarity. We feel acutely the difficulties of not being together in person. Even apart, tonight we honor the workers who have been pushed to the brink by the COVID-19 crisis, the frontline nurses and hospital staff who work tirelessly to heal the sick, the hospitality workers who have been laid off, the teachers who have kept our children learning and safe during this time of tumult. Beginning last March and throughout this year, we at the New England Jewish Labor Committee fought hard for workplace safety and a just response to the COVID-19 crisis. We organized a town hall to make sure attendees understood unemployment insurance benefits. We fought for safe homes as the eviction moratorium expired. We mobilized our membership alongside Instacart workers, grocery workers, nurses, teachers, and so many others. Together, we have contributed to the vibrancy of Jewish life by organizing meaningful educational events and commemorations. We hosted shul talks and labor on the Bima, speakers bringing issues of worker justice directly to synagogues and other places where Jews congregate, even on Zoom. And this summer for Tisha B'Av, a day of mourning, alongside Sarah Nelson of the Association of Flight Attendants, Jean Ross of National Nurses United, and frontline workers, we honor those workers who we have lost to this deadly virus. If you'd like to get involved with the Jewish Labor Committee organizing, please sign up on our website. We're putting a link to that in the chat. We do all of this because of our Jewish values, history, and culture. This is who we are, and we cannot do it without you. And together we can do so much more. I want to welcome you and thank you. I also want to thank our honorees, Jerry Rubin of Jewish Vocational Service and Mary Najimy of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. Mary and Jerry are 2 strong, incredible people, and we are grateful for their leadership. I also want to thank all of our sponsors and those who placed an ad in our program book, which you can find on our website. and it has also been emailed out. We're putting a link to that as well in the chat if you would like to download our program book. I'd also like to personally thank the Labor Seder Committee, Rabbi Barbara Penzner, Rabbi Mike Rothbaum, Ora Gladstone, Ben Weilerstein, and to Catherine Bodieri, who has helped with the logistics of this event. And finally, I want to thank our lead organizer, Emma Rose Borzakowski, who has been my right hand this last year, which has been a really difficult year. Thank you for all you do for NEJLC. And now I want to introduce Rabbi Barbara Penzner of Temple Hillel B'nai Torah in West Roxbury and co-chair of the New England Jewish Labor Committee, who leads the Seder every year. Barbara.
Thank you, Ari, and welcome everyone to the New England Jewish Labor Committee's 21st Labor Seder. Actually, last year was the 20th and we didn't have it, so officially this is the 20th. We hope, however, that our gathering this year once again reminds us that liberation from oppression requires our continued faith, perseverance, and commitment to a just society. If it could happen for the Israelites under slavery to a cruel Pharaoh, it can happen for us today. So this year, for a second year, we miss sharing the bitter herbs and the sweet charoset together. We miss connecting to friends and to strangers. We miss the remarkable gathering of workers, union leaders, Jewish leaders, and elected officials that is the unique domain of the Labor Seder. And one thing we will miss this year is singing everyone's favorite song from the Seder, Dayenu. We usually sing, Dai Dayenu, Dai Dayenu. It's everyone's favorite. And it's a Hebrew word meaning that would have been sufficient. In a year where so many have lost jobs, where so many lives have been lost, where we have adjusted to lockdown, shut-ins, and burnout, in a year of recognition of a growing inequality in this country, what could we possibly say has been sufficient? So like the song itself, tonight we stop to acknowledge the vitality of our movement and the spiritual courage and emotional fortitude that we have brought to this fraught moment. Truly, we have a great deal to be grateful for. First of all, I want to express gratitude for our executive director, Ari Fertig, especially in this year of the birth of his son, Elijah, appropriately named for the Seder, and our lead organizer, Emma Rose Borzakowski. From the moment that we decided last March to cancel our annual in-person Labor Seder, just under 2 weeks before it was supposed to happen, Ari and Emma began finding ways to help workers in hard times. We pressured grocery chains who were not adequately protecting their workers from the virus. We helped raise funds for hotel housekeepers, 90% of whose union members lost jobs due to the pandemic. We supported our allies in the Raise Up Coalition fight for basic protections like emergency paid sick leave. We're grateful to our honorees, Mary Najimy and Jerry Rubin, for their visionary leadership to address the crisis here in Massachusetts. And we say, Dayenu. We're grateful for last year's honorees as well, Josh Zakem and Tom Flynn, and we wish you well and say, Dayenu. We are grateful for the president of the National Jewish Labor Committee, Stuart Applebaum, for his pivotal role in bringing national attention to the plight of Amazon workers in their struggle to form a union and giving them the full support of unions across the country. And say with me, Dayenu. We're grateful for President Biden and Vice President Harris for their firm and vocal commitment to labor rights.
Dayenu.
And we congratulate the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, who is set to be confirmed as the next Secretary of Labor.
Dayenu.
We are grateful for all the elected officials who are here tonight and who respond to the cause of workers year-round.
Dayenu.
We're grateful for all of you, and we hope you will look at that program book showing all the friends and allies to whom we are grateful. The link is in the chat. So are we satisfied? Is
No.
this enough?
No.
But we have come a long way from March 2020, from the unknown about coronavirus, and from the dire political circumstances of last year. Dayenu.
Dayenu.
So I'm sorry to say we can't feed you an entire Seder over Zoom, but the following video should give you a taste of all 15 parts of the Seder. Now, Seder, as many of you know, means order. Why does our retelling follow an established order? Because while we sincerely hope that change would take place overnight, as organizers, we know that doesn't happen randomly. Just as oppression arises through a series of steps, so liberation succeeds by moving forward step by step. And as we gather for this year's Labor Seder, we lift up the workers, the unions, the leaders across our region who struggled and endured and will emerge from this unprecedented economic crisis, moving step by step to make a healthier, more equitable, and more just workplace. So now, let's watch the Seder video.
We at Local 26 formed the line to celebrate even during a long battle with a whirlwind pandemic. Like the Israelites who walk out Egypt, we see there a platform and is anew. During the pandemic, over 90% of workshop was laid off, but collective struggle having made our union bond strong and ready to battle time.
Has there ever been a time that hand washing has been so front and center? The nurses of the M&A have always known the importance of sanitation as the safest step before any activity. As frontline workers, we honor those who care for the sick and mark Passover as a time of renewal.
Carpas es una verdura fresca que simboliza la llegada de la primavera y de la nueva vida. Durante COVID-19, los trabajadores agrícolas arriesgamos nuestras vidas para llevar al mundo esas verduras y todos los demás alimentos que necesitamos. Yo trabajo con la coalición de trabajadores de Immokalee para asegurar que los tomates sean cultivados en condiciones de trabajo justos. Por eso también incluimos un tomate en el plato del Seder. Mojamos verduras en agua salada para recordar las lágrimas que derramaron los israelitas cuando eran esclavos en Egipto. En este momento, cuando nosotros los trabajadores agrícolas, igual como los trabajadores de primera línea, seguimos luchando, incluso mientras derramamos lágrimas, recordamos que hay una nueva vida y que la primavera está a la vuelta de la esquina.
When we break bread together, we create bonds of friendship, respect, and care. At this point in the Seder, we break the middle matzah and hide part of it away to share later. Cultural messages have broken bonds of connection between us. We are taught that some members of our community are worth more than others. At the Harvard Graduate Student Union, we acknowledge that there is value in all who labor. We look forward to the day when we discover our shared humanity and the broken and marginalized parts of our community are included and celebrated.
During Magid, we tell the story of the Israelites who marched out of Egypt. The Exodus story is, in essence, a tale of immigrant workers who are oppressed by a large, powerful government that no one believes can be overcome. Not Pharaoh, not the Israelites, not even Moses. As educators, our job is to inspire the next generation to learn and grow and believe in their own power. We teach history, fight to teach a curriculum that reflects our students of color, their cultures, and their histories. and fights against xenophobia in all its forms. And do it in a place that is safe for all students and all educators.
Spiritually, we cleanse ourselves to prepare for the reciting of the blessing. Once again, we prepare for the food to come. We need to be reminded, out loud and often, of the intention we have set, the purpose that drives us. At the Mass Building Trades Council, we are so proud of how hard our team has worked to uphold new health and safety protocols and to keep each other safe, particularly in the days of the pandemic.
SEIU 509 is currently organizing workers at North Suffolk Mental Health Association. The workers are on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, putting their own health and their family's health at risk to care for the clients they serve. They are fighting for good wages and benefits. In Hebrew, matzah is the bread of poverty. It also means bread of oppression. In Judaism, there is no distinction between poverty and oppression. When people live in poverty, that is oppression.
Maror is the bitter herbs. We eat the bitter herb so that we too ingest the bitterness that causes us physical discomfort, so that we share in the pain that so many feel on the inside. We cannot insulate ourselves from the distress that others are suffering.
During courage, we eat the Heli sandwich. The charset is a symbolic of the moral used by the Israeli slaves when they laid bricks for the Pharaoh's monuments. At the North Atlantic State Regional Council of Carpenters, we never forget the sacrifice of those that came before us. They worked far too many hours for little pay and dangerous conditions.
As we set the table and get ready to feast, Matahari Women's Worker Center honors all restaurant workers and domestic workers who are holding our homes together and setting our tables. Many have lost their lives during the pandemic, but are not recognized by those in power. Many are forced to work in unsafe conditions to provide for their families.
At this point in the Seder, we reveal the hidden half of the middle matzah and share it with all assembled. Our work reveals that which is hidden, lifting up the voices of those who have not been heard and bringing to light those who have become invisible. We celebrate successes and renew our commitment to push for what is just. Racial equality, immigration reform, affordable childcare, rent and housing relief, and a living wage for all.
Once we have eaten and are satisfied, we pause and open the door for Elijah the prophet. We say, "All who are hungry, come and eat." The Lift Our Kids Coalition is fighting to end deep poverty and ensure that everyone has enough to get by.
Hallel is a time to sing songs of praise. This year, the workers at Join for Justice organized and won recognition for the Join Workers Union, because every worker deserves a union, including at nonprofits. When we join together in solidarity, it is a moment of joy. Each of us has a role to play in the task of liberation, and when we lift our voices together in song, we can imagine a world where all of us are free and fortify ourselves for the work of bringing it into being.
Just as the Israelites were freed from Egyptian bondage, we hold hope that this year will bring freedom from oppression and degradation. The message of Passover is that individually, even a Moses will fail. But together, as a united force, we can overcome the oppression of the plague of economic degradation. Next year, may we rejoice together in freedom, in fairness, in community, and in person.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am definitely full and inspired by all of that. I want to particularly thank Rabbi Mike Rothbaum for his important role in this video, and to all who contributed to it, and also for the steps that you each take every day in your fields and in solidarity with all workers. Now, what would a Seder be without music? A Besser Welt, which is Yiddish for a better world, something we're all working for, is an intergenerational community chorus that weaves the heartache and irrepressible idealism of Yiddish folk music into a harmonious vision of justice and humanity for the 21st century. And now we'll listen to a Besser Welt.
Und du ackerst und du säst und du witterst und du nähst und du hammerst und du stehst auf mein Volk, was du verdienst. Und du ackerst und du säst und du witterst und du nähst und du hammerst und du stehst auf mein Volk, was du verdienst. Kling, klang, stehen alle Räder still. Kling, klang, stehen alle Räder still. Nur wo ist dein Tisch gegräht, nur wo ist deine Jontefleid, nur wo ist dein Schaf gestellt, welches Lied ist dir verschellt. Nur wo ist dein Tisch gegräht, nur wo ist dein Jontefleid, nur wo ist dein Schaf gestellt, welches Lied ist dir verschellt. Kling, klang, stehen alle Räder still. Kling, klang, stehen alle Räder still. Man von Arbeit heute gewacht und erkennt ein Kreuze macht. Wenn der starke Hand nur will, stehen alle Räder still. Man von Arbeit heute gewacht und erkennt ein Kreuze macht. Wenn der starke Hand nur will, stehen alle Räder still. Kling, klang, stehen alle Räder still. Kling, klang, stehen alle Räder still.
Wow.
Wow.
So uplifting to have a Besser Welt back with us at our Seder, and we hope to have you again next year. And now it's my great honor to introduce someone from whom I've learned half of what I know about organizing, who has been a role model and who's taught me a lot about discipline, particularly keeping things short. So without further ado, my fantastic co-chair, Ashley Adams.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm a little overwhelmed by the Yiddish chorus, as I always have been. So thank you to them for inspiration. It is appropriate and wonderful. Tonight, we are honoring two powerful and effective leaders, Jerry Rubin and Mary Najimy. Jerry, whom I have known and respected for, my God, more than 40 years, is the president and CEO of the Jewish Vocational Service, also known more familiarly as JVS. He is responsible, I think he has been responsible for building JVS into what is surely the most prominent worker education and workforce development nonprofit in New England. Specifically, and most recently, he has helped bring cash assistance to workers who directly suffered from the economic impact of COVID-19. He innovated with new ways of job training to help workers get employed and has fought hard for the rights of all workers, including and especially immigrants to this country. Mary Najimy, I mean, what a wonderful pair of people to be honoring. I am really moved by this. Mary Najimy is the president of the most powerful union in New England, the 117,000 member Massachusetts Teachers Association, the union I work for. She is an ardent advocate for public education, having worked for nearly 30 years as a public school teacher. Mary has been at the front of the fight for safety for teachers and their students. There are many reasons to honor Mary now, including just this month, when largely because of her advocacy and the advocacy of other union leaders, but chiefly her advocacy, Governor Baker agreed to prioritize teachers getting the COVID-19 vaccine. This victory will help keep our teachers, school staff, the students they work for, and the communities they live in safe as they reopen and allow students to get back into the classroom. And now we'll hear from some folks who know firsthand the impact of these great two leaders, Mary and Jerry.
Mary has always been highly supportive. He's been able to create a statewide movement while honoring the local leaders' experience as well, and having a lot of empathy for our experience. The thing about Mary is that her support, it always feels sincere and genuine.
It's important that we hold a line, a 6-foot line at that. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win.
Mary Najimy knows how to talk to teachers as if she is a classroom teacher with them at the same time as being a fierce labor leader.
Our schools! Our schools! Our schools!
We were very aware that a Trump administration meant that there was going to be a significant reduction in immigration and refugee services.
Jerry's first reaction was to let them speak and let them feel that they were together. So there were about 100 and something people in the room, and they got strength from one another.
The opportunity from his perspective was there are tens of thousands of refugees that are in Massachusetts that are stuck at the bottom and not contributing to the Commonwealth's economy to the degree that they could. Let's help them get to that next job. Let's help them get to that next educational credential, and therefore providing a greater tax revenue for Massachusetts.
The leadership that he has, I guess it's based on true respect for individuals, true respect for people's history and what they are, how they've lived.
He doesn't carry his ego around. When he's talking to you, that is genuine. You can absolutely take him at his word.
Our honorees sat down with journalist and author Sarah Jaffe to talk about the challenges that workers have faced over the last year. So after we show a video of their discussion, We'll give Mary and Jerry a chance to come on screen and say a few words each. And now for the panel discussion, Sarah Jaffe and the Mary and Jerry Show.
Hello, I'm Sarah Jaffe. I'm a writer who writes about work and have this book behind me, Work Won't Love You Back, that is my latest project. But I'm really happy to be here with the Labor Seder with Mary Najimy from the Massachusetts Teachers Association and Jerry Rubin of Jewish Vocational Services. And I want to start this conversation by asking both of you to talk a little bit about how the pandemic has changed how you think about work. Mary, do you want to start?
Sure. I think the pandemic really just sharpens for all of us the inequitable conditions that schools have been functioning under, not just for educators, but for our students, particularly our students of color. You know, before the pandemic, here in Massachusetts, our Fund Our Future campaign was designed to pull back the curtain and expose how our schools in our communities of color, in our working class communities, have been actively and intentionally divested from, disinvested in. In this job, as the president, I've traveled to places like Fall River, New Bedford, Springfield, Worcester, mold and rodent infested buildings because the ventilation system can't keep up. Class sizes of in the 30s, no full-time aides, the cut of libraries, PE, et cetera. And what we see in the pandemic is all of that is worse.
A year ago, Massachusetts had the lowest unemployment rate in the entire United States. And 2 weeks later, we had the highest unemployment rate in the entire United States. It may have actually been the first time in history a state went from 1 to 50 in a 2-week period, but that's literally what happened. And we're not the highest unemployment rate in the country right now, but it's a dramatically different job market than it was a year ago. And this recession is not like the last Great Recession, which was much more of an equal opportunity recession. This recession has really, really hit low-income workers and workers of color harder than any other segment of the job force. So Latina women, Black women, were hit by far the hardest, and Latino men and Black men just right after that, to a large degree because they're working significantly in the industries that were hit so hard in this COVID recession. But work and jobs were even more complicated, not just because of tremendous numbers of layoffs, but also because going back to work is complicated. It's complicated by obviously concerns about health, but it goes way beyond that. It's complicated by childcare. Is childcare available? Is childcare safe? It's complicated by all kinds of issues around worker health and safety that I think were not quite as in the front of everyone's minds. And so as we are just beginning to come out of this recession, and really just beginning, I think, that hopefully in the coming months, in the summer and into the fall, we'll see some more significant job recovery. There's a lot of complications, and not everyone has been hit the same, and not everyone is going to have the same kind of recovery. I mean, the working poor were struggling even in the best of times just over a year ago, and now they're even further behind.
You know, Jerry, we actually have been saying inside of MTA, it's for some, it's the Great Depression, and for others, it's a pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. So following on that, actually, Mary, could you talk a little bit more about why keeping workers safe at all of these levels keeps communities safe?
Right. You have to think in so many places, whether it's riding public transportation or going to a retail store or going into a school building. These are public spaces. Everybody uses them. And so when unions fight to have safe working conditions for the workers, be it indoor air quality or free from hazardous materials, or sidewalks that aren't crumbling. Whenever anybody else uses the facility, we are keeping them safe. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is when buildings keep workers safe from infection or illness, they're not going to take it home into their communities. And thinking about the kinds of communities Jerry described, particularly communities of color, the immigrant communities, working class communities that live in multi-generational families, in multi-generational or multifamily complexes. When you bring disease and infection to your home or your building, you're infecting, or you're running the risk of infecting everybody who lives there. And then one more thought about that is the economy. When workers get sick, they can't pay their bills. If they don't have sick time, if we don't fight for sick time, they can't take care of their families, they can't rest. And so then that has economic consequences. So it's health and safety, it's the economy, it's emotional wellness. When workers get sick in the work site, it also takes a tremendous emotional toll on them, their colleagues, and everybody in their family.
I'm really glad you brought up the emotional part of this, because I think it's certainly what's getting to me a year in. One of the statistics that I'm kind of obsessed with as a labor journalist lately is that the raw numbers of union workers went down last year, but union density actually went up because union workers were more likely to not get fired. That's just sort of one little detail. But can you talk a little bit more about what role unions have played in keeping the school safe? What role your particular union has played in trying to keep the schools safe?
We have looked at what the CDC guidelines have said, and we have stuck to it. We have held our ground, and we have said there are these mitigation strategies that must be in place before we can have assurance that schools are safe for workers and families. And they are, number one, ventilation, because we know this in this pandemic, the ventilation needs to be able to control infection, distancing, masking, cleaning the facilities, hand washing. We've been fighting so hard for 9 months, and we finally won rapid COVID testing at the school site of workers and families. And now we are still in the fight for vaccinations. And people want to use the CDC recommendations. They want to misuse. The governor, the commissioner want to really minimize what the CDC is saying so that they could maximize their will and have full in-person learning. CDC hasn't changed. They have been consistent that it isn't one mitigation strategy. It's the sum whole, right, of all the parts. And so this moment has been lots of highs and lots of lows. And as a union, we have to work our hardest to give people hope through collective action.
So, Jerry, back in May, you wrote a blog about the need for three things. One was to get income and emergency provisions into families' hands. Two was to help workers develop their skills, even as we entered a period of high unemployment. And three is, of course, helping with reemployment whenever possible, and presumably making sure that it's safe reemployment. I wonder if you could expand a little bit on some of that.
Yeah, on the emergency, immediate emergency, I remember in March when we realized this was something really out of the ordinary that we had to act on by getting cash into people's hands. We were figuring on a 3-month situation. It's hard to believe now, right? We're in this for a year, and frankly, it hasn't changed. The demand for, we have now refunded our emergency fund 3 times over the last year, reached out to our philanthropic supporters because when a client talks to one of our instructors or our coaches, and literally has no food in the house, we're not going to put people through a complicated process of qualifying for whatever aid is available. We're going to make sure they have cash and can buy food or deal with their utilities that are perhaps being shut off. What's been surprising to me is how long that's continued. Thankfully, with the with the new administration in Washington, we have an extension of unemployment insurance because there was a period where there was actually a gap and people were getting no support. So if you were unemployed, you were running out of unemployment and there was literally no cash coming in, which was the same problem back in March because there was a period it took a while before people were seeing unemployment checks. And so that was really, really an enormous problem. The issue of getting people back to work is one that obviously is key to all of our work. At the end of the day, emergency funds are not going to support families long term. People need good jobs and an opportunity to make wages that can support their families and in conditions that are safe. And that's what we're always working for. But in a period of high unemployment, it's actually a really great time for people to build their skills, because if they are able to, particularly if they're able remotely to be able to take our classes, which is what we've been able to do, if they are collecting unemployment insurance, they're under great hardship, but they can use that time. If they're non-native English speakers, they can improve their English. They can learn a new skill, because one of the challenges of this recession also is many of these jobs are not going to come back. They are not coming back. I mean, we will see some recovery in the hospitality industry, but it's not likely to come back in the way that it was before. Just think about business travel. It's going to change structurally. That's not just a temporary change. And so people need to pivot, right? They're going to have to, eventually unemployment is going to run out, and it's not sufficient anyway. And that means they're going to have to improve their skills, get new skills, and pivot to new jobs. And that's one thing that we've been focusing on, is making sure that these opportunities to gain new skills for when the jobs are there are available to people, that they're affordable and accessible. That's really our goal. Unfortunately, there's not been a lot of resources put into this. Even the most recent federal COVID recovery package actually has no resources for employment and training services, none at all, which in my mind is very, very short-sighted because, as I said, we've been able to get 800 people re-employed in this time. So it's not like there are no jobs, and those jobs are going to start coming back, one hopes, this summer and fall. And this is an excellent time for people to be able to get prepared to go into those jobs and once again get back into the job market and start climbing their way back to economic self-sufficiency.
And what Jerry, you're talking about is this very same argument that we're making for why we have to robustly fund public higher education, right? It's your workers. You need the resources to sustain your programming, and we need to go beyond that. We have to really reinvest at this moment in our public community colleges, in our state system, in our UMass system, for the very reasons that you just said. We are at the community college losing massive amounts of enrollments of people of color because they don't have either A, the resources to stay in college, or B, the connectivity to stay online to do their coursework. So we need, we need a New Deal-like program to reinvest in the public good, in workers, in public universities, in public education. That's what's going to get us out of this pandemic and to economic recovery as well.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking when I see the enrollment numbers in community college go down. We have a partnership relationship with Bunker Hill Community College and with Quincy College, which is also a 2-year college. And the reason we form those partnerships and get so many of our clients prepared for and into college is because we know that the better paying jobs require some post-secondary education, not necessarily a 4-year degree, but at least a post-secondary certificate or an associate's degree. And look, in my opinion, community college should be free. We were talking about generational change. My own economic situation is a function of the fact that my father was able to go to City College in New York at no cost to his parents. His parents were unemployed. It was a terrible economic time. My mother didn't go to college until I was older, and but that's how my father went. It was free to him, and that propelled my family from a poor family in the Bronx to a middle-class family in the suburbs of New Jersey in one generation. And that kind of investment led to the largest growth of the economy in American history, that period of time, that post-war period, because we invested post-war through the GI Bill and other educational subsidies in building our education and our talent. And that's the kind of investment that we need. You know, you look at immigrant workers, other low-income workers who struggle to make a living, and we know that greater education and skills will be one of the paths, but not if they can't afford it, and not if they can't access it. And those things have to be dealt with. This idea of a New Deal to me look, income inequality is greater right now than it has been since the Gilded Age. And that's not a magical happening. I mean, that's a function of public policy and decisions that we've made. And one of the things that we have decided, not all of us, but some of us have decided, is to disinvest in educational investments. And that leads to slower economic growth and greater inequality.
Like, there's a fine point that I want to end what you just said about the need for affordable school and your family's story. It's very much like my family's story. My grandparents were immigrants from Lebanon. They never finished even grammar school. My father came from a family of 5. They all worked when they were young people. My father was the first in the family to go to college, state school, came out without debt, got a unionized teaching job, put his youngest sister, 11 years apart, through college. She became a teacher, got a unionized job. My father saved enough money for me, my sister, my brother to go through 2 years of community college and 2 years of state school. We came out debt-free because it was affordable. It wasn't free, but it was affordable. And then I got a unionized job, right? So at the end of our degrees, we have to be able to walk into jobs that have union protection, because that's where you get economic and retirement security.
Yeah, I kept trying the question to sum everything up, and you guys just kept going. This is great. I just want you to keep going, but I know everybody has time. So I just want to say, like, this has been wonderful. And I think it's not surprising that both of you are thinking about what needs to change coming out of this and thinking big about the way this is going to structurally change the economy. So just any last thoughts on that before we wrap up?
I think we can never give up hope, right? We have to turn to each other. We have to see the interconnectedness of our lives so that we see the interconnectedness of our struggles. And whether you're unionized or not, it's always hope is through collective action. In MTA, we always wrap everything up by saying, when we fight, we win.
I have seen some both very hopeful times over the last number of years and some very challenging times. And obviously, we're in a pretty challenging time. But when we have been in these crises, it has often, not always, but often propelled the country to look deep inside and think about significant changes. I think about the changes that were made coming out of the Great Depression when the New Deal was implemented. And I actually think that we're at one of those inflection points. In the country has some decisions to make about what kind of nation we want to be, and do we want to be a nation for all of the individuals who live here, or just a few. And I'm hopeful that the kinds of experiences we've had, certainly over the last year, but even over the last decade, will lead us in that direction.
Well, Mary and Jerry, you've led us through a really challenging conversation, ending with hope. And I want to thank Sarah Jaffe for being the moderator. But now We'd love to have you live on screen. Mary, would you say a few words, please?
I will. I got to take down my background too so you can see my award, but I just want you to catch a glimpse of that because that's the latest struggle. So first, I want to start with a greeting, and I hope I get this right. Chag Samich, Buenos noches, Salam alaikum. Ashley, it was such an honor to get that email from you many months ago saying that you want to nominate me for the award. And then as Ari and I were talking with intention, who might be the person to do the education part of the Seder, and naturally I turned to my partner, Max, because he is both Jewish and he's an educator. And then my MTA family, the video that you made, that's a surprise. I am really moved. Really, it was a teary, joyful moment for me. And this program is so amazing. It is so hard to take a live event and turn it into something meaningful and captivating. And you all have done that. And then just to actually look at the 180 faces, knowing that I know almost every single one of you, either because you're my MTA peeps, or you're my family, my nieces and nephews, my sister, my brother, or you're my good friends, or you're my partners in the labor struggle, whether it's through our work together through the AFL-CIO or Community Labor United, and every part of this movement. So really, it's exciting to be here, and it's exciting to see this. Give me a second to change my background so I can show you this beautiful award. There. And Ari dropped this off, right? And what better symbol to use than the fist? So I just want to say a few formal remarks. As I was watching the program and all of the different words that all of the sponsors use, like relentless commitment, stand together, speak out, fight. These are definitely the words that are descriptive of Jewish values, but they are also words that describe each and every one of you on this call tonight. The things that I'm most passionate about in my personal life is being an aunt and being a wife. And the things that I'm most passionate about in my professional life is being an educator and being the president of the MTA. Those are the two most meaningful things that I have ever done in terms of a career. And while on the surface, it might look like I love the spotlight, and I do actually when it comes to being my soapbox, to fight for liberation, for racial, social, economic justice. When it comes to the personal spotlight, I am much more humbled and less comfortable in the personal spotlight. And though at times I am the one who's most visible out there in the front, swinging, and we did a lot of good swinging, didn't we, Beth, last week at Governor Baker? We're only winning because you are all the ones who are at my side. This fight is never a fight. A movement isn't about an individual, it's about the community. And while we are in the deepest crisis of our lives, there's always important and meaningful things that come out of it. And that's the relationship that we build with each other. It's the work that we do. It's the changes to people's living conditions, their working conditions, their learning conditions. And so you heard me say in the video what the MTA wrap up is. We're going to do the MTA wrap up. I don't know if people can actually unmic. If you can, then unmic. And I'm going to take us out by saying, when we fight,
we win.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Mary, you are so deserving of the Clara Lemlich-Shavelson Award. She was a fighter and an important leader in the labor movement, and we're so honored and inspired by you. And Jerry is receiving an award that is brand new this year. And we've named it the Don Siegel Award for Community Service on behalf of labor. And we are just so pleased that you're the first recipient of this award. So please, Jerry.
Thank you, Barbara. And I don't have a great background. As you can see, it's the same background every day. It's always the same background. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet Mary and to have a chance to talk with her. We haven't met before, and it was a real honor and pleasure to spend a little time together, even though it was 3 parts removed. I really enjoyed the conversation. And I want to thank the Jewish Labor Committee for the recognition. For many years, I've been attending this Seder, and it's a highlight of the year. I always look forward to seeing friends and colleagues and celebrating Passover together. And I miss seeing so many of my friends in person. But I'm grateful, nonetheless, that you've given us the opportunity to celebrate, and in such a beautiful way. I mean, oh my gosh, the chorus, I don't even know what to say. It was just so, it was a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. And the way you pulled this together, the Seder, it's a wonderful start to the Passover time. And thank you for that. I think I'm accepting this award on behalf of my colleagues at JBS and my colleagues at the many social service agencies across the Commonwealth who have worked so hard this year to support so many who have struggled during this COVID crisis. I want to thank you for raising up the issues of struggling workers during the COVID crisis. And as we do begin to come out of the crisis, we need to remember that there are hundreds of thousands of Massachusetts workers who remain unemployed, and they need and deserve our ongoing solidarity and support. So thank you for shining a light on that. Thank you for the opportunity to create community together with so many of my friends and family and colleagues.
We're grateful to both of you. And now I'm going to turn it right over to my co-chair, Ashley Adams.
Let me unmute. Thank you, Rabbi. I want to thank our honorees and Sarah Jaffe for a great panel. Thank you to the musicians. I'd also just do a shout out to the woman whom I think of as responsible for the Yiddish chorus being what it is today. She's no longer the director, of course, but Lisa Gallatin, I always think of you whenever I am inspired by that remarkable group. I think Lisa is here today. Thank you, Ari and Emma Rose. If it weren't for you, this event tonight would not be taking place. Tonight, all of you have heard about the workers' struggles that many are going through here in Massachusetts. In so doing, the rabbi and I and the rest of the Jewish Labor Committee have tried to give you a true and authentic, if small, taste of what the Passover Seder really is. The New England Jewish Labor Committee seeks to serve as a bridge between the labor movement and the Jewish community, providing a bright spotlight on the right and the fight for economic justice and workers' rights. That's why we exist. It's partially to bring people together to schmooze, but mainly it is to shine a spotlight with a Jewish perspective on the struggles you've heard about tonight. Tonight, we ask for your support in that struggle. If you've been inspired by these struggles that we've talked about and highlighted and that we are engaged in, we ask that you go right now to newenglandjewishlabor.org. It's up on your screen. It's in the chat. And we ask proudly that you make a donation to support the work we do. You can do this by going to the link in the chat that's up right now. Why wait? Such a deal. Your donation directly supports our efforts to educate, mobilize, organize the Jewish community in support of economic justice here in Massachusetts. So we ask you to join in those efforts by making a contribution, making a donation. In a moment, we will close the formal part of our Seder with the singing of Solidarity Forever. That's something we've done every year. And then, for those of you who are interested, we will have a breakout room, many breakout rooms, in fact, so you can schmooze, kibitz, mingle, talk, do all the stuff we used to do when we were live before the Seder began. Now, because of COVID and doing it this way, we're going to do it afterwards. And again, I want to thank you for any contributions you can make by just going online now to newenglandjewishLaborCommittee.org, and it's in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. This has been inspirational to me and to the rabbi as well. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, everyone. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you all for your contributions. And now to close out, we always end with Solidarity Forever, and we've made it possible not for us to all be heard, but all to sing. So we're going to have you on mute and invite you to put on your gallery view so that we can all see each other. Our closed captioning is going to include the words to the song on your screen. And I'm going to ask you if you would like to rise as you're able so that we can all sing together Solidarity Forever with a wonderful chorus led by Rabbi Leora Abelson, Helen Bennett, Cantor Vera Brookhuizen, Cantor Becky Hittrick, and Alex Samaras. So now, let's all sing Solidarity Forever.
When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater than when we meet the sound. Though our unity will be tested by the folks in Washington, we'll keep the union strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. The union is so strong. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn. But without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel could turn. Historic income inequality, it makes my anger burn. But the union makes us strong.
Solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Oh, I can hear you all. So great to see all of your faces. Thank you for joining us this evening and making yet another Seder an opportunity for solidarity. I wish everyone, whether you are Jewish or not, a liberating Passover. And next year, may we all be healthy, vaccinated, and together in person. So now is the time for the breakout rooms. You can feel free to say your goodbyes, put something in the chat, or stay in the breakout as long as you like. And when you get there, please introduce yourself to the other people and consider this question you might want to answer in the group. What does liberation look like to you at this moment? Thank you all. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Passover.
Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach.